a pumper. That's what they use to take the cement and then pump it around the back of a house, if you will, an area where they can't get a cement truck. And boy, these guys are busy. There's a lot of them out on the roadway, but that truck's pretty heavy. And we saw the LAPD officer try and do a spike strip, but it looks like the suspect saw it coming and swerved out of the way. I don't see any indication that any of the tires were punctured by the spike strip. But as long as the suspect stays on Topanga Canyon Boulevard and drives at a slow rate of speed, there's a good chance they're going to try that again. Now, officers are getting out of the vehicle. They're going to try and talk him, it appeared to be a man, out of this situation. But as you can see, he's been very indecisive. He's not running red lights. We're not seeing really high speeds, and a huge danger to the public in this area. But obviously, anytime somebody's being pursued like this and they're unwilling to stop, there is a danger to it, and it can be extremely dangerous. But we're not seeing, at least, Tony, high rates of speed, and we're just hoping this individual's going to give himself up here soon. Yeah. Yeah, and when you have something like this, I mean, if the truck does swerve and it gets here, a patrol car coming up really fast in front of him, you see that, Marcel? We don't see that very often, but a patrol car just came flying up in front of him. Open up out of your shot off to the right there. So I think they're going to try and shut down traffic. Don't let it get up to that point and then get another spike strip out. But the suspect's aware of that, and he's turning around. So fortunately, we're not seeing aggressive driving. We've seen the suspect be very indecisive. You can't really do a pit maneuver in a situation like this because it just won't work pulling that pumper behind that truck. And it does appear to be a man, and only a man, inside the vehicle. So at this point in time, I think if he keeps going around in circles like this, they'll be able to stop traffic, get another spike strip out. Once they puncture tires on a vehicle like this, it'll be pretty hard to continue for too long. But there we go, possibly turning around once again. There's another spike strip. Not sure, Tony, maybe you saw that better than I did, but I'm not sure that they actually got him that time either. It's hard to tell. Yeah, it did. I mean, it was a construction worker. He had his boots on. He had a dark shirt. It looked like it might have matched the Atomic, I think it says on the side of there. And he was walking right up to him. And where that happened isn't going to be far from where he's at right now. We're headed back northbound on Topanga Canyon Boulevard. Once we got up to about Satakoy, the suspect turned around, and that's where that individual walked out to him. It was kind of unusual to see him do that. You can see the patrol cars sliding up behind him right now. Some indecision here. I'm not sure if there's another spike strip in front of him. And I'm trying to see if this might have been the same spot where that individual came out and tried to talk to the suspect. It's about the same area, and it's really hard to tell. He may be looking out to see if there's anything underneath the vehicle, if the spike strip did actually work or not. And open up a little bit, Marcel, because it's so slow here. I'm just trying to get an idea exactly what LAPD is trying to do. Even open up a little bit more and see what their strategy is. It kind of appears to us, Tony, they may go to tracking. We're hearing that. In which case, what they're going to do is they're just going to let the patrol cars back off, and they're going to let the helicopter follow this individual until he comes to a stop, or he's in an area where they can send in the patrol cars, which seems like a pretty good strategy because, what they can do right now isn't much, and he's driving so slow, it doesn't look like we have much of a danger to the public. So for the moment, and it changes so rapidly, but for the moment, open up, Marcel. Once again, we did hear they were going to go to tracking, but, for the most part, they're still right behind him. So I think they're really trying to decide right now, supervisors watching this, and trying to figure out exactly how they should handle it. Yeah. Is it Atomic? I believe so. The A is written a little weird, but Atomic Concrete Pumping. Open up a little bit more for me, if you would, Marcel. I'm just trying to get an idea what the LAPD is doing. I mean, we see the suspect, but it looks like he's trying to talk to them or talk to someone. And so they've really kept their distance here. I'm not sure if they're going to try and get... Yeah, I'm not sure if they're going to try and get ahead of them. You see on the top left portion of your screen, an LAPD officer is going quickly down the alleyway. I really believe probably their best strategy right now is to try and get that spike strip out. They won't get in front of them. They don't want to try and stop them because, as you mentioned, it's a heavy vehicle. It's a big truck, low center of gravity, and that pumper weighs quite a bit too. That's a big, basically, engine that just pumps concrete. You know how heavy concrete is. So it's a heavy vehicle pulling a heavy trailer. And if he does get higher speeds, it can get extremely dangerous. Fortunately, we just haven't seen, over the speed limit. We haven't even seen the speed limit for the most part on these surface streets. So it'll be interesting, Tony, to see exactly how they handle this. If they want to back off completely and just follow it from the helicopter, or if they want to keep the patrol cars on them. Yeah, that I don't have confirmed. I think there's there's a question about that, whether or not this vehicle was stolen. Maybe it's not. If the accident occurred, it was a hit and run, and the individual got out and got into this vehicle and took off, and now this is a stolen vehicle. We don't have confirmation of that. We're sort of piecing it together. That happens in these types of situations. It can be a little difficult, really, to get a handle on that because there's so much information. But it's on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, heading very slowly northbound. There's probably half a dozen patrol cars behind the suspect that you don't see. But you're right, Tony. Very well could be that's not even, an employee of the company. We just don't know at this point in time. The helicopter's overhead. If they've gone to tracking mode, it appears because the distance of the other patrol cars that are still headed northbound on Topanga. Open up real wide for a second. I think what they're doing, Tony, off to the right side of your screen, you're going to see the patrol cars, but they've really backed off. And what they're doing is they're stopping any traffic from getting up to this individual because he's erratic. They don't know what he might do. He's turned around. And for the safety of everybody, they haven't gone to the kind of tracking mode where they just back off completely. But what they've done is stop traffic northbound on Topanga Canyon Boulevard as just for safety, I believe. And the helicopter is overhead. And as you mentioned, the speeds are so slow. You got to wonder what the indecision is here, what's going on inside the driver, the suspect's mind at this point in time. Doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason as to where they're headed or where he is headed. But certainly we're seeing at least the vehicle and the suspect obey the traffic laws as long as the patrol cars aren't right behind him. Now, when the patrol cars got right behind the suspect, we saw more erratic driving, and I think that's why they backed off. They're thinking about safety for the public first, and I think that's a good strategy right now. Yep. Exactly. It gets out so quickly these days in social media that once a pursuit is underway, you'll see people come out just to watch the pursuit. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see more people on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, just trying to get detention and waving. The last thing you want, though, is anybody trying to interfere. You'll get arrested for that, by the way, so don't even consider it. But, you just never know. You could really get hurt or even killed in a situation like that. But the speed is slow. That's a really good point. That's really good as far as safety is concerned. They're in tracking mode for the most part, just trying to keep traffic away from this individual northbound on Topanga Canyon. Still in the Canoga Park area. If we continue northbound, we'll be up into Chatsworth. And Chatsworth is where it all started, basically that collision that happened at DeSoto and Lassen, the original collision. And then during the pursuit, this vehicle right here, can we see any damage to it, Marcel? I don't really think so. Maybe to that left front, the bumper there, it's hard to tell. But there was another collision at Shermanway and Corbin. That would have been in the Canoga Park area. We don't have any details on that, if anybody was hurt, but we don't think it was a violent crash. We think it was just a minor accident and no injuries reported at this point in time. Now, this will get interesting if the suspect tries to do a U-turn. We've seen that a couple of times because further south there's going to be some officers, and they may have a different strategy if he pulls into the parking lot here. And now we've got him into a parking structure. If they get patrol cars in place quick enough, they may be able to get a spike strip out if the suspect tries to get out and get those tires flat and put an end to this. But as you can tell from our shot, Tony, they've gone to complete tracking mode right now. They basically don't have any patrol cars for the most part in the area. They have slowed traffic on Topanga Canyon Boulevard to keep traffic away from the suspect. But just the helicopter overhead right now is following the suspect and us, of course. And they're just going to let him continue to drive like this because he's not a danger to the public. Yep. Yeah, we saw him poking around a little bit. We saw him waving at officers. We've seen some real indecisive driving, though. It appears, he has control of the vehicle. A lot of times you think about drugs or alcohol involved, and that may be the case, but the suspect can keep the vehicle, in the lane, right? We don't see him swerving in and out, but then we haven't seen him put himself in a difficult situation either where he's traveling at a high rate of speed. It's been such a slow speed pursuit for the most part. And now he's stopped on Roscoe. We're headed back eastbound towards Owens Mouth. But with the officers backing off, it really appears to be a good strategy, Tony, because, when the suspect comes up to an intersection like that and traffic is stopped, if the patrol cars swerve up right behind him, there's a possibility he'll try and get around the traffic and then, possibly get into another accident or hurt somebody. But right now they're just tracking him. We're once again eastbound on Roscoe in the Canoga Park area. And the suspect content to stay in his lane. We see some movement in there. And there you see a person, I don't know if they're trying to talk to him or just get around him there. And we see him stopping. So certainly extremely erratic. Obviously, this individual has no idea what he wants to do. Oh, boy. Yeah. Yeah, by watching the vehicle, I thought, you always consider drugs or alcohol. By watching his demeanor inside the vehicle, it could be mental health issues. You just never know. But, drugs or alcohol certainly appears to be playing some sort of factor here. That certainly could be the case. He's rocking back and forth. It appears that very agitated. Now just stopped. Push in again, if you would, Marcel. Let's get some movement and see what the suspect is actually doing. He was grabbing his head, rocking back and forth. It appears that whatever he's doing, it's a moment-to-moment decision, whether he's going to continue, whether he's going to stop. And it appears, drugs or alcohol may be a factor in this. Yeah, Marcel's got a great camera in the back. He said it'll look okay. On Canoga Avenue now. All right, copy. Are we waiting to go on programming, or are we just streaming? Go ahead, Booth. Okay, so I can keep talking during the on the stream right now, and then you'll just interrupt me when Tony's going to throw it. All right. So we had a little bit of a break as far as our programming was concerned. If you're with us here following this on the streaming service, this has been going on since 7:20 this morning. So what are we looking at? About an hour and a half, 7:20, 8 o'clock. Yes. So it not quite that long, but it's been going on since 7:20. That was the initial accident that happened at DeSoto and Lassen, where this individual, we believe, was involved in an accident. We don't know if the accident was with this particular vehicle, or if maybe there was an accident at DeSoto and Lassen, hit-and-run crash, they initially said, and then they mentioned a stolen vehicle. So we don't know if the suspect may have been driving a different car, was involved in a crash, then got inside this truck and took off. This is a pumping truck, a concrete pumping truck. We're on Canoga southbound in Canoga Park, just away from Roscoe. This is an industrial area, and the suspect is driving, for the most part, very slow. If you've been following this, we've been seeing speeds below the speed limit for the most part. We saw multiple times that LAPD tried to put a spike strip in front of the vehicle, but at this rate of speed, he just saw what was going on and was able to maneuver around the spike strip, so that was ineffective. And then LAPD just decided, hey, we're going to go to tracking mode, and they pulled the patrol cars off. The driver seems to be very agitated, grabbing his head from time to time, rocking back and forth, very indecisive, really having a hard time trying to figure out exactly what he's going to do. We can open up out of the shot a little bit more, Marcel. I just want to see from here if we do have any patrol cars behind him whatsoever. And it doesn't look like it. So the strategy for the LAPD is just to back off, let the helicopter fall overhead. He's really not endangering the public. He's not trying to swerve around other drivers. He's not going at a high rate of speed. And hopefully at some point in time he'll come to his senses and just give himself up. And this will end without incident. Now, it's kind of the first time we've seen him really try and squeeze by some of the cars at this intersection up to this stoplight. And we do know this vehicle did or was involved in an accident. Yeah, Tony, they've gone into a mode where they just backed off altogether, tracking mode. They have an LAPD helicopter overhead. We've seen this vehicle travel for the most part at the speed limit. It's a concrete concrete pumper, that truck pulling a pumper. We're in the Canoga Park area on Canoga, headed southbound. LAPD's backed off. We've been watching the driver, very agitated, rocking back and forth, stopping and then going and then stopping and going, very indecisive. Doesn't appear that he really has any idea what he wants to do. Fortunately, we're not seeing a speed that's endangering anyone. That's the good news at this point in time. We've been on Topanga Canyon. We've been on Roscoe. A lot of surface streets here in the Canoga Park area. Started 7:20 this morning in the Chatsworth area with a traffic collision at Sherman Way and Corbin. And it's unclear if the suspect stole this truck or not. If that could be the case, we just don't know. Haven't been able to confirm that information. But right now, helicopter overhead, following it from the air. They went to tracking mode. They backed off with the patrol cars on the ground. There were several attempts to try and do a spike strip, and I think they just figured, hey, it's not worth it. Suspect's not driving at a high enough rate of speed that he's endangering anyone. Let's just watch him from the helicopter. They're watching our feed. They're getting a really good idea exactly what this individual's doing. If he starts to get dangerous to the public, they'll move in and change their strategy, but right now they've backed off. Seen a couple of situations where people just know what's going on. We had a guy walk out to the truck a moment ago on his cell phone. It appears that as time goes by, more and more people realize there is a pursuit in this area of Canoga Park. I think it's going to make a turn here onto Sherman Way in this intersection, and so we've seen people actually walk out towards this individual. I don't see him on the phone, though. He was drinking some apple juice a moment ago. A lot of times you'll see a suspect get on the phone and start calling people, and those people will come out to meet him. Doesn't appear to be the case in this situation. But fortunately, Tony, he's driving at a slow rate of speed, really not endangering anybody. But this is a weird maneuver right here. For a moment there, I thought he was going to try another U-turn, and that's a long vehicle considering the truck and the trailer, that pumper, that concrete pumper. That can be a little tricky. So we'll see what happens here. We're just hoping nobody gets hurt for the most part. Once again, there have been two collisions, the initial one in Chatsworth, then one in Northridge. One involving this vehicle, one involving possibly a different vehicle, the initial accident. That's we're still trying to confirm, but there's a concrete truck right there. So that's exactly what that pumper does. They take the concrete out of the cement truck, they put it into that pumper, and then you see all those hoses in the back of the truck. They can pump that concrete to the back of a house or to a construction project where they can't get the cement truck to. So now we're still in an industrial area. We're driving down a small little street, Eaton Avenue, in Canoga Park. It'll be interesting to see exactly where the suspect goes. If he has any idea where he's going, it's kind of hard to tell, Tony, because you could tell, you know, I mean, he was pretty agitated inside that vehicle. It didn't look like he had any idea what he was doing, and it appeared, you know, either a mental health issue of some type or drugs or alcohol. You just don't act like that. This individual, it's hard to say if they know him. It almost looks like they did. They don't have a cell phone out, and they're almost, you know, waving to stop. So it could be that he's driving into an area he's familiar with and he knows some people at. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. It's hard to say. And then, you know, look at he didn't know those individuals. And it didn't look like a company logo on that sweatshirt to me. It's hard to tell for sure. But it didn't appear he knew the two individuals that walked by, because they just casually walked by, and then he sort of got their attention and waved at them. So, I mean, we're just seeing such erratic activity from this individual. We did see somebody come out, though, and sort of wave to him that almost appeared like he may have known that person, but that's so hard to tell. And then the individual I talked about earlier on Sherman Way that came out and walked right up to the vehicle just had a dark-colored shirt, just like that, construction boots on, things of that nature. That's the same guy that was waving to him before, down the street on Eaton Avenue. We're on Galt Street now. That's the same individual who walked out in the tank top there and tried to get the individual to stop. So whether he knows him or not, it's unclear. But, boy, so indecisive right now. And I think what we may see now, that they're in tracking mode, but we know the suspect's in this one area. LAPD can get in here probably pretty easily, maybe get a spike strip down, just to make sure this doesn't go too fast, doesn't get out of hand. It's a better spot here, I think, to try and stop this in this commercial area than it was, say, on Sherman Way with all that traffic. Yeah, unclear if he knows them. I mean, it looked like they were kind of waiting for him, didn't it, when he came down? And see, everybody's taking pictures. It just gets out so quickly on social media where this is and what's going on. And a lot of times it's hard to tell if the individual out there waving at the person who's driving, the suspect, if they know him or not, because they catch it on social media. That's the same van we saw a moment ago, remember? Pulled up next to him. So, you know, maybe it's somebody they know, and they're just trying to talk some sense into the suspect to say, hey, come on, get out of the vehicle. You're just going to hurt somebody. You're going to get caught no matter what. You're not getting away. You're just saving a little time. But it looks like that individual's been up to this truck twice, and so was the other guy, once on a bicycle and once walking. So it could be he's familiar with some of the people in this area. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. No, very possible. I mean, time will tell, right? We'll figure that out. I've seen a lot of concrete pumper trucks, different situations. If they're going to like a house or something like that, they sometimes don't even put the vest on. But that one individual who walked up to the truck over on Topanga Canyon Boulevard was wearing a black shirt, exactly like that one, tan pants, and then construction boots. Now here we start to see some real indecision. Why the individual, the suspect, decided he didn't want to turn down that street? There's someone there. That could be why. It's hard to tell. if that might have been the reason. There was a woman out in the middle of the road. It appeared to be a woman waving at the suspect, and he's turned around and decided not to go that direction. So, trying to get into the head of a suspect in a situation like this is, absolutely impossible. Fact is stranger than fiction when you follow these pursuits. It's just, you never know, and you'll make a lot of speculation, and in most cases you're wrong. But right now it's just really hard to say where he's going to head. We're headed out of that commercial area, that real good area we were in a few moments ago, Tony, where it was, just commercial, and now we've headed towards some homes, and that sort of changes things as well. Even though traveling at a slow rate of speed, kids out on the bicycle, things of that nature. It's getting that time of the morning, they may be out. Most of the kids are out of school for summer, and you hate to see that. And you do see speed pick up just a little bit there for a moment. The speed really hasn't been a factor where we're like, oh my goodness, this is going to hurt or kill somebody. But you just never know. I've followed a lot of these pursuits, Tony, and a suspect will drive like this, and then all of a sudden you just start driving crazy. And we certainly hope that doesn't happen. We'll bring up real-time speed tracking. I don't think we're too fast, but we're back up at 30, where a while ago we were at 9 miles an hour. So it gives you an idea just how erratic this individual is. All right, I'm not sure, Tony. I don't hear you, so I'm not sure if I lost programming there. So I'm just going to talk until somebody tells me not to. There is some damage to the front of the vehicle right there. You see the damage? Now, we had conflicting information, an accident at 720, maybe involving this truck, but the truck did hit someone during the pursuit at Sherman Way in Corbin. But the original accident was in Chatsworth at DeSoto and Lassen, and there's some damage to that vehicle. We've been trying to figure out whether or not the original accident at 720 may have occurred between two vehicles, not this vehicle, and then the suspect from one of the vehicles in the crash jumped into this vehicle and stole it, because we have some information that it's stolen. It's really hard to confirm these things. LAPD is really not in the habit of getting that out immediately to us, right? They've got a lot more pressing things to do. But as time goes by, we'll find out more about that. Yeah, we're on DeSoto. Looks like he's pulling into the intersection. Kind of looks a little strange there. Was looking for traffic in both directions, and I think what concerned him is up ahead, traffic is stopped. It looks like he continues to try and see if there's any LAPD officers right behind him, and there are not. Open up out of the shot. It looks like they've decided to stay in tracking mode. And you can understand the reason why they've done that, because if you had a situation just like this, and they had 5 or 6 patrol cars right behind him, it's hard to say what he may do. It's a big truck, it's pulling a trailer or a concrete pumping truck, and it's hard to say what the individual might do. You see people out taking pictures of him. It looks like they knew this was happening and they were looking for it. But you can tell the strategy, Tony, because it could get pretty dicey if you had 4 or 5 patrol cars pulling up right behind this individual, and this individual's in stop traffic. We're southbound on DeSoto, coming up on Victory Boulevard, I believe, here in a moment. If you go far enough on DeSoto to the south, you're going to run into the Ventura Freeway. Haven't seen this on the freeway yet. And boy, look at this. It's going to cut right in front of that. It looks like almost like an ambulance, but it's a work truck of some type, and into oncoming traffic. It's the first time we've seen this type of behavior from the suspect, and this could make a difference in how the LAPD handles this, because he made that move without any patrol cars behind him. So if they see that he's going to drive erratically like that, regardless of whether the patrol cars are there, they may get back on this and then try and stop it with some more spike strips. Yeah, It's crazy. We do know this vehicle was involved in an accident, so more than likely that's the damage in the front. We didn't think it was much, and that's the accident that happened at Sherman Way in Corbin. The original accident happened to DeSoto and Lassen in Chatsworth. So it looks like he's made a turn onto Victory Boulevard, headed eastbound now on Victory. And when he makes a turn, he speeds up a bit. That's really our concern here, our high rates of speed with this vehicle, just because it's so hard to maneuver. You got a trailer behind it. It's got a low center of gravity. It's a big, probably 2-ton truck. I mean, you know, this truck is really heavy, could cause a lot of damage, even if it only hits something going relatively slow. And we've seen too many of these incidents, Tony, where, you know, people have gotten seriously injured or even killed. And that's really, when we watch these things, what we worry about. Now, as we continue on Victory Boulevard, headed, headed eastbound, looks like this is going to be a light he can just go right through. I still see no patrol cars behind him, and I don't see any traffic in front of him. Victory Boulevard looks pretty good until you get quite a bit further to the east, towards the 405. So at this point in time, you know, maybe he'll just run out of gas, right? The helicopter overhead won't. I mean, they'll just send in another one. The helicopters do run out of gas, or they get low on fuel, but then LAPD would just send in another one to take over. And at this point, the best thing could be just run out of gas. Yeah, definitely by far. There's no traffic in front of him. There's a stoplight that he's coming up on here, a signal light, I should say. We're right next to Pierce College, and it's just at the intersection of Victory Boulevard and Winnetka. There's some cross traffic there, but once you get through that and continue eastbound on Victory, there's not much in the way of volume or congestion on Victory from what I can tell. Again, just the helicopter overhead. We did see speeds that were concerning there for a moment, you're right, but there's no one around them. There was no other vehicles in that area, and there wasn't any volume or any traffic. I think we saw that real erratic driving, though, at that intersection where the suspect couldn't continue to move. It almost appears like, especially from the way he moves around, if you could push in again, Marcel, bouncing back and forth, you know, obviously extremely agitated and obviously, you know, uncomfortable just sitting still, right? And I think, did he get in the... Okay, he's reaching for something. Yeah, he's not comfortable sitting still, right? He just does. He's fidgeting a lot, moving around, grabbing things, and so we only hope that this ends peacefully without incident, because you just never know when you got someone behind the wheel of a truck like that who's acting like that. What could happen? Yep, we're going to be northbound on Winnetka now, away from Victory Boulevard. So we'll be headed back up really towards where this all happened. You know, if you take Winnetka further north, DeSoto's only one street to the west, and Lassen is about a mile north of here. So it's hard to say. Might be stopping for a moment. You know, we've seen the suspect stop so many times, make U-turns on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, make real erratic moves. When you travel at a slow rate of speed, when they throw out the spike strip, right, if you're not moving fast, it's kind of hard for the LAPD to do it really quick. I mean, because he sees them. If you're traveling at 50 or 60, you know, you might be able to hide behind a car and throw it out. When you're doing 9 miles an hour, he just sees them, and he was able to sort of go around and maneuver around the spike strips that they threw out on Topanga Canyon Boulevard earlier. So now we're northbound on Winnetka. And as I mentioned, if they continue north like this, there's not much volume. There's stop light traffic, but there's no stop traffic from what I can tell all the way up to the 118. It's just some stops at the lights themselves. And we'll just have to see what strategy they're going to continue with. But right now, it's tracking mode. Helicopter has them. Doesn't appear to be a danger to the public. And again, you know, best case scenario, he just gets out of the vehicle, runs out of gas, and this ends without incident. But, you know, he's obviously extremely erratic. He's not comfortable sitting still. He's fidgeting, bouncing up and down, making all sorts of gestures to people. And that's just a dangerous recipe. You never know what an individual like that might do. I think it would in this case, just because of the speeds that he's traveling. And, you know, it's so hard to judge these days, Tony. You know, we see different agencies with different policies. We see CHP that seems to be a little more aggressive in following the pursuits. We see the Sheriff's Department's backing off completely immediately. So it's really hard to tell, you know, the supervisor watching this exactly which strategy they're going to employ, because it's not the same across all agencies. But I do believe what you said is you know, accurate, that if this starts to get extremely erratic, it becomes a danger to the public, they feel like this individual is going to hurt somebody, then I think their strategy will change. It looks like you might be making a left turn into another parking area here. There's a bowling alley there, if I'm not mistaken. If he makes that left turn and doesn't go to the intersection, it's Winnetka, and I think that might be right before Victory Boulevard, if I'm not mistaken. There's a hotel there, there's a bowling alley, and it appears he might be trying to pull into that parking lot there. So, you know, LAPD knows that. The patrol cars know that. At this point in time, it's whether or not they want to try and get them to come to this location. I mean, they're not tracking right behind it, but they're aware it's going on, and they're in the vicinity. They're just trying to make sure that their presence doesn't make the suspect drive more erratically and endanger someone. Yeah, open up a little bit, if you would. Open up a little bit, Marcel, if you would, so I can get an idea where he's headed. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, it looks like they're waving to somebody and they're headed into the bowling alley. So it doesn't appear that they knew him or he knew them. You know, it's hard to say for sure. But fortunately, he's in this parking lot going very slow and has stopped for the moment, or almost stopped. But now we're coming back up onto Van Owen, and we'll see if the suspect continues. This is one of those things that continue for a long, long time if the suspect continues to drive like this. You know, I believe when the accident occurred, Tony, they had a lot of patrol cars behind him, and that may have been part of their thinking as well. You know, boy, look, that was pretty close going through that intersection. But I think that might have been part of their strategy as well. You know, there's been one little accident when we were right behind him. Let's go to tracking. If he drives like this, he's probably not going to hit anybody. And let's just let this thing play out. Yeah. 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 I'm sure that LAPD's already contacted them. I'm sure they have a lot of information that we don't have. The yellow vest could have been inside the vehicle. If this is actually stolen, maybe it's not an employee of the atomic pumping company or concrete company. But we see a pretty bizarre maneuver here, trying to get out into traffic and going into oncoming lanes basically for a moment to try and get back to the right side of the freeway. Open up a little bit, Marcel. I can see a little bit more what's going on and who we have headed. So there was nobody coming at him at that point, and now he's been able to cut over into the direction of traffic that he's heading. You see the LAPD helicopter fly by there. But boy, it's such erratic behavior, Tony, by that driver. I think that's what scares me the most in this situation. It's certainly not the pace that the suspect's driving, but it's just he's so erratic. I mean, obviously you look at that and the first thing comes to mind, you know, more than likely drugs or alcohol, because, you know, when you can't sit still, when you're that erratic, when you're bouncing up and down, when you're grabbing for things and throwing things, you know, certainly that's, in a lot of instances, that is the issue. Sometimes it could be mental health issues too. We've seen that in the past, but some pretty erratic behavior by this guy. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You see him make that turn. You see how the trailer follows behind, but there was a motorcycle there. And fortunately, we're at a low rate of speed, a slow speed, and hopefully he stops here. But You know, we've seen this so many times. It looks like he's going to pull over to the shoulder and stop, maybe get some shade there for a moment, but unfortunately that's not the case. And then all of a sudden it speeds up a bit. We'll bring up the real-time speed tracker once again because now the speeds have increased. And, you know, we did see almost 60 there, I think, for a moment, and then down to 9 miles an hour. And we are northbound on Winnetka. We were on Winnetka, and then we got off it, and then we got back on Winnetka. So basically staying in the same area, the San Fernando Valley, you know, the Canoga Park, Chatsworth, Northridge area. For the most part, we haven't seen him venture out of that area. Whether that indicates he's familiar with the area or not, you know, who knows at this point in time. That van pulled up and doesn't appear to have any indication of what's going on. And without all the patrol cars behind, you know, not as many people realize that this is happening. Still tracking, though. Pull out wide for me, if you would, Marcel, just to get an idea if we see any LAPD vehicles pulling into the area. And at this point in time, we do not. I don't see any, Tony. I'm not sure if you do with that wide shot, but we'll push back in. And fortunately, as we mentioned over and over again, he's not driving very fast, and that's good news. You see a bicyclist there on the shoulder on the right. That can be dangerous, especially when you have somebody as erratic as this guy driving. Yeah, 7:20 was the time we got for the initial crash. It was in Chatsworth at DeSoto and Lassen. We're still trying to figure out exactly what happened in the initial crash because initially we got the report that it was a hit-and-run accident, and then we got a report that there was a stolen vehicle. So we don't know if maybe the suspect driving this vehicle was one of the individuals in that first crash and then got out and stole this truck. We haven't been able to piece that together, so that's unclear, but we know the accident at 7:20 was in Chatsworth at DeSoto and Lassen. Then the pursuit started. They started pursuing the concrete pumping truck you're looking at right there, and during that pursuit, there was a traffic collision at Sherman Way and Corbin, and there was minor damage to the front of that vehicle. We don't think anyone was hurt. We don't know for certain, but that's the information we have at this point in time. And then we've just seen a slow-speed pursuit. At one point in time, LAPD vehicles right behind the suspects, like half a dozen or more, getting in front of the suspect, throwing out spike strips on Topanga Canyon Boulevard in Canoga Park. The suspect was driving slow enough he could maneuver around the spike strips, so that didn't work. And then we saw LAPD say, hey, back off. Just go to tracking, keep the helicopter overhead. He's making radio calls, getting it out on which streets. Oh, they threw something out. It looked like that bottle that he was possibly drinking, but the suspect just threw something out the window a moment ago. And we're back on Sherman Way. So really going around in a big circle for the most part in the west end of the San Fernando Valley. Extremely erratic as far as the motions of the suspect, you know, waving at people, bouncing back and forth, trying to get people's attention. Fortunately, though, as you mentioned, Tony's driving hasn't been that erratic. We haven't seen any real close calls. You know, there was one collision, but that's when the PD ships, that's when the LAPD cruisers were right behind him. And that may have been one of the reasons they backed off, Tony, because, you know, with them right behind him, he was driving more erratically at a higher rate of speed, and that's when the crash occurred. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, especially with a truck this big. And, you know, it's like we look at it, it's still a pursuit, right? I mean, they're still in pursuit. They're just in tracking mode, meaning that the patrol cars aren't right behind them. The helicopter's making radio calls, so every LAPD officer in this area knows exactly where this is headed. They got complete calls. You know, you're westbound on Sherman Way coming up on Mason, 9 miles an hour. They're going to get that update from the helicopter over and over and over again. So everybody knows. In a lot of cases, that maybe getting that information out to units to say, hey, just stay away from this guy. Don't get in front of him. Don't let him see you. If he's coming down Sherman Way and you're on Sherman Way, turn, go around him. We don't want to do anything to make this individual drive more erratically than he has in a couple situations. And we just want this thing to play out. If he's on drugs, you know, maybe those drugs will wear off. Maybe he'll come to his senses. Maybe the vehicle will run out of gas. But right now with the helicopter overhead, with the news media, with us following this individual, you know, and the speeds we're seeing not really being a danger, they're just content to sit back and let this thing play out. Yeah, all across the West End, and I think it's a pretty good bet to say that the LAPD knows whether or not the suspect's an employee of the trucking company, of the atomic concrete pumping company, or not. I'm sure they've made some calls. I'm sure they've done some investigation. I mean, we're looking at over an hour now, so they've got an idea who they're dealing with. Whether or not, if it's an employee, then they probably know exactly who the individual is by now. They've probably been able to figure that out. If it's not an employee, if the initial accident occurred, and which may be the case, I'm able to confirm, and then the suspect in that initial accident in Chatsworth jumped out and then hopped into this truck and drove away, which is possible, we're trying to piece things together, then they may not know who this individual is. But if he's employed by the company, you can bet they know by now. So they're going to have a lot better information than we have. In a lot of cases, Tony, we see the suspect on the cell phone. And when they're on the cell phone, in a lot of cases, that's a pretty good indicator they're talking to someone like a friend or, family member, and the family member's trying to talk some sense into them, and the family member's talking to the police. In this situation, I haven't seen any activity on the cell phone, but certainly extremely agitated behavior. You push into him, Tony? Marcel? Can you push in tight to the suspect? All the way in, tight as we can go. Very good. Would it be nearly impossible to bring up some of that video from the spike strip?
I could try to find it.
All right. Right now we have a rake. You could go a little wide, pull it up probably. Oh, police are behind him again. Open up. They've decided to get right behind him again.
Yeah. There it is.
Interesting. And there's a lot of traffic up ahead. This could get a little dicey here. Yeah. Okay, I think I might be back on air with you, Tony. They're re-engaging here. You see the LAPD cruisers right behind them. We're on DeSoto, headed northbound up towards Victory Boulevard. And, once the suspect gets through, okay, made a turn because up ahead there was stopped traffic. Made a turn now. I believe that's going to be on Tavano and not Victory, and headed back to the west. But certainly the suspect has gone around in circles, and LAPD has made a decision now to re-engage, to get right up behind the vehicle. It wouldn't surprise me if they've got units up in front as well, and they're going to try another spike strip. But here's a change in their strategy to try and get this over with. It looks like they were not content to continue to follow just with the helicopter overhead, and now they have a couple of patrol cars behind the suspect.
Tell Michelle they're on Canoga Switch.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what the suspect does now, because we've been, talking about the strategy and what they may be thinking about, backing off and going to tracking because it wasn't much of a danger. But now that they're back re-engaged and right behind him, if the suspect starts driving extremely erratically and starts swerving around traffic, they may back off once again. But right now, it appears the suspect has about the same demeanor. You know, he's stopped right now on Van Owen. We're headed westbound in Canoga Park. And the patrol cars, right behind him, looks like he's looking out the window. You know, it's about 3 or 4 times I've seen him look out and stare down. Not sure exactly what he might be looking for, but, you know, he's been so erratic. He can't sit still. He's bouncing back and forth, gesturing at people he doesn't know, looking up at us in the helicopter, and now looking behind him at the patrol cars. But having the patrol cars right behind him, Tony, hasn't seemed to change his demeanor or the way he's driving, which is kind of good, because now they can be right behind him and monitor him, and we're not seeing him trying to take off and get away from those patrol cars. Yeah, and we understand now they're saying it's a DUI, and it doesn't appear to me like he's driving under the influence of alcohol. You know, I could be totally wrong on that, but it appears from his demeanor that it's going to be more than just alcohol in this individual system. He has fairly good control of the vehicle. Like, he can stay in his lane. We don't see him swerving too badly, but boy, the way he's jumping up and down and can't sit still. Police do say now he's driving under the influence of something. We are stopped now at Canoga Avenue in Woodland Hills, and if we open up a little bit, we'll get an idea what the patrol cars are doing. They're going to open their door. They've got, you know, the bullhorn on there. They're going to try and get his attention, say, hey, come on, just give yourself up. You're not going to get away. If they know who he is, which they may by now, they'll put his name out there to let the suspect know for sure that, you know, they know who he is. And right now we're completely stopped, Canoga and Victory Boulevard, headed eastbound at Canoga Avenue. And we're just going to have to see, or it might be the other way around, and looking out the window south on Canoga at Victory, what the suspect does. But the good news is, Tony, you know, we're in an intersection right now. We've seen pursuits in a lot of cases. When this happens, the suspect go right through a red light, endanger himself and others. This suspect hasn't done anything like that. And I think that's why they went back to this track, or back to the re-engaging with the patrol cars right behind him, because it hasn't changed the way he's driving at all. Well, yeah, they're going to try and communicate with them. They certainly like to talk them out of this and get this over with. And they do open the doors immediately. They stop the vehicle. They hide behind the doors, basically just in case the suspect gets out with a weapon. It allows them to open fire on the suspect if they have to, because it's tough to do if you're sitting down. So they want to be behind the door. They want to be safe, and they want to be in a position where they can protect themselves. And so in most cases, they'll stop the vehicle. They'll open the doors. You got both the driver and a passenger. They'll both get out, more than likely with their guns drawn. They just don't know what they're dealing with at this point in time, but they're very aware of cross-traffic about, you know, what they have to deal with here. They absolutely, positively would not want anything to end in gun battle in a situation like this. We understand they might be doing a spike strip here in a moment. I don't see exactly where it is, but when he's traveling, we've seen in the past, when he's going this slow, it's really hard to get one out. But I think we're going to see it in a moment here. We just heard over the scanner. It might be at this intersection here. So there it is. So they're getting ready to get the spike strip out. We'll see if the suspect sees it. And when the vehicle's traveling that slow, you know, he could sort of prepare for it and get around it. We'll see if this time the suspect is able to. Several times. Trying to get away from it. And, you know, if you're the LAPD officer, it's a tough one, too. You know, you just don't want to run. You just don't want to run out there. Did that get stuck on the fence? They missed it. There you go. They're dragging it back. So he was able to get around that. And, you know, I mean, you've got to be careful, too, if you're the officer. You don't want to get in front of that vehicle. So you've got to try and get out there into the intersection at the right time, toss it out in front of him, and then pull it back real quick. So if he does run over it, it doesn't flatten the tires of the patrol cars right behind them. But yeah, that's at least the third, if not the fourth time they've tried the spike strip. It's been unsuccessful. This isn't the type of vehicle you could do the pit maneuver on. That just won't happen. If you did pit that trailer, it would just flip over, and boy, it could cause so much injury to anybody in the surrounding area. So this is not a vehicle that they could attempt that with. Everything,
Tracking,
anything, yeah, anything you could think of. I think we've seen pursued from was a tank in San Diego. I've seen a bus being pursued one time. We've had campers that split apart. They're in the middle of a pursuit, and it looks like now, there's no rhyme or reason to this, Tony. I've never been able to figure it out, but they're going back into tracking mode. So I guess they tried the spike strip. It didn't work, so just follow them from the helicopter. So the patrol cars have backed off once again. We're back on Victory Boulevard. Same exact spot we were when we were talking, 10 minutes ago, Tony. And this is where he got some speed up because there was no traffic around him. Traveling eastbound and coming back up next to Pierce College once again. There's more traffic at the intersection up ahead than we had last time. It's probably getting closer to when most of the classes start, whatever summer classes they have here or activities. But we're right next to Pierce College. And we're back on tracking mode. It's just a helicopter overhead.
talking about asking to re-engage before spike strips. But
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah, it really appears right from the start we sort of got an idea that that was the case. Just by the way, he was so agitated, couldn't sit still, always moving around. I mean, you usually only see that type of activity from someone if they're under the influence of something. And now police have confirmed that. There is a little chatter right now about going back into surveillance. Going back into mode right behind him, re-engaging and trying another spike strip. It's on Victory Boulevard, and he's going to stop here. There's some stoplight traffic. It's a little more difficult to do the spike strip in this area where you have long stretches. And I do see they're going to start to re-engage, it looks like. They're pulling up again. They're probably about a half mile away, but it looks like they're speeding up. In a situation like this where you don't have a lot of real major stops or areas where that you could hide for the spike strip, it's kind of difficult to do it. It's going to be easier on some of the, those blocks where you have a lot of things to hide behind, whether it's a vehicle that's parked on the shoulder. You see Victory Boulevard, you really can't park on. You can on some spots, and the speeds will be a little higher on Victory, say, than they would be, on some of the smaller streets we've seen in the industrial area, the commercial area where the suspect was before. But certainly with no traffic around them, not traveling very fast, so we can bring up the real-time speed tracker, probably, 25 miles an hour, so maybe 30 there. But they may re-engage again, Tony. They're talking about it. I saw the patrol car start to pull up, and then I saw them back off. So, these things are so difficult to try and predict. It's nearly impossible. If you think you're going to figure out what's going to happen on a pursuit, we'll think again. It'd be like, winning the lottery. You just never seem to know, and you just never seem to know really how the police are going to approach it either. I mean, depending on the department, depending on who the supervisor is, depending on how the driver is driving, the type of vehicle he's driving, the conditions, it's a sunny day today, but sometimes they're in rain. Depending on all those factors, so dynamic, it's really difficult to try and predict anything in a situation like this. So we've been trying to piece it together completely. We know at 7:20 this morning there was an accident at the corner of DeSoto and Lassen in Chatsworth. And that accident came back as a hit-and-run crash. And then the pursuit started. We don't know if the suspect may have been driving the vehicle in the initial accident and then stole this vehicle or not. We just haven't been able to really confirm that. That's when the pursuit started. About 20 minutes after the pursuit started, there was another accident at Sherman Way and Corbin. Then the Canoga Park area. We don't think there was a lot of damage in that crash. We saw a little bit of damage. There's another spike strip they're going to try here. You can see the officers trying to get in position. I think they might be a little late, but maybe not. And you can tell when the suspect's driving this slow, he's just coming up on this right now. I don't think they're going to get position in time. No, they have not. They didn't quite make it. When they're driving this slow, the suspect can see them. And it makes it much more difficult. But getting back to after that initial accident, a stolen vehicle pursued. We believe this may be stolen. We don't know for sure. There was another crash. It wasn't a violent crash. It was only a little damage to the front of the vehicle. And that makes sense because the suspect hasn't been driving at a very high rate of speed. I think it's 4 times they've tried a spike strip. They've been on surveillance mode. They re-engaged, went back into a pursuit on the ground. During the whole time, they've had the LAPD helicopter overhead. Slow rate of speed right now on Victory Boulevard. Headed eastbound, stopping from time to time, extremely agitated, and we are hearing now from police. They believe he's driving under the influence of something. Yeah, it's not that easy depending on how fast he's driving and depending on, where they're going to try and set it up. And like I mentioned before, it's a little difficult to find a really good spot. Now, we're coming up on Wilbur, and I believe they're going to try another spike strip right now. But unfortunately, open up wide for a second, if you will. If he stays in that left turn lane, you see the patrol car there in the center of your screen, it's going to be real difficult for them to get into traffic and do the spike strip there without him seeing it. But you can see they're ready. Now, what happened last time in a situation like this, he's in the left turn lane, the suspect is. You see him right there. You can't really see the officers yet. Last time this happened, he did a U-turn. But there's not a lot of room for a U-turn right here. I don't know, pulling that trailer, if he's going to be able to make a U-turn in one turn. So now is the moment of truth. What's the suspect going to do? He's going to continue forward. If he does, they might be able to get him with a spike strip. If not, he tries to turn around. He might get stuck there. I'm not sure he'll be able to make that in just those 2 lanes. So it looks like he's seen the officers. The officer's getting ready to throw out the spike strip. And there he goes. He's going to be able to get in front of him here, though. Oh, not quite. Oh, just missed it. Just missed it. He might try and re-engage it again if he continues there. But, yeah, so close. And now, some more erratic behavior. I guess he's going to go northbound here on Wilbur. So they almost got it there, Tony. And you could tell the LAPD officer's a little hesitant. He really doesn't want to get right in front of this guy, and you can't blame him. Yeah. Not only that, I mean, they don't know. They probably know who this guy is. I don't know for sure. If he's an employee of the company, they know who he is. But if he's not, then they probably don't know who he is. But they've seen our shot. The helicopter's seen this guy. He's erratic, and there's no indication that he doesn't have a gun. I mean, we don't have any indication that he does have one, but he could have. And if you're the officer with a spike strip and you're running out in front of that vehicle, you could be shot at. I mean, that's a possibility. Stranger things have happened. So all of those things are in their mind. It's better if they know who the suspect is. If they can just get some idea, identify the suspect, then they might have a little better gauge of what they're dealing with. But we don't know if they know that or not. I'm assuming if this individual is an employee of the concrete pumping company, Atomic, that they know who he is. Yeah. That's a blessing. That's a blessing because with that vehicle and that individual being under the influence of something, if he was driving around these corners at 60, 70, somebody get hurt or killed, that could be possible, if not inevitable. So it's a blessing that he's driving at a slow rate of speed because we're really not seeing that, fear factor we get in some of those pursuits. When we look at these things, we're like, oh my goodness, somebody's going to get killed. We don't see that with this one, but they can't just let this go and not follow it. They're back into, it appears, just a tracking mode. Although we're hearing now it's about half a mile up ahead at Wilbur and Sherman Way. they're going to try another spike strip. So hopefully they'll be successful this time. If they can get the tires flat on this vehicle, it's so heavy, it'll go right down to the rim. And if he makes a turn here, see the spike strip they had set up was about, I don't know, 3 blocks north of here. Now that he's made a turn onto Van Owen, that spike strip will not work. So now they're going to put a radio call out and try and set up another spot where they can try it. But if they're successful with it, this vehicle, you know, is so heavy, I think it'll be down on the rim in no time. Hour and a half. Yep. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, hopefully. It seems like it comes and goes with this guy, though. You know, you'll see a pretty erratic behavior, and then you'll see him kind of calm. So, yeah, you know, hopefully whatever he's under the influence of is wearing off a little bit, and he comes to his senses. You know, just a matter of, like, how long could this thing go? I mean, I'm you know, just guessing, but, you know, probably can't get more than, what, about 6 miles a gallon out of that vehicle. It's pretty heavy. It's towing something that's heavy. It probably has a pretty big fuel tank, but they probably talked to the company. They probably know how much fuel's in it. I believe LAPD would have that type of information. They'd want that. And so they may have an idea. Looks like we have another spike strip set up. This is going to be on Reseda Boulevard, I believe, and back at Van Owen. So they'll have another attempt here to try and get a spike strip. You see the suspect, we lost him for a moment there behind the trees. But he's headed on Van Owen towards Reseda Boulevard, and we'll see what happens here in just a moment. At least, yeah, at least. So, and he stopped. So, you see him there. He just stopped. He's looking ahead. We'll push in to see how erratic this guy really is. If did he move away from the wheel for a moment? We saw him grabbing a bunch of stuff out of the back. And, yeah, Tony looks a little bit more calm than what we saw earlier, that's for sure. But from time to time, he just really starts reaching for things, jumping up and down in his seat, weaving back and forth, putting his hands in front of his face, putting his sunglasses on, taking them off, throwing them. He had a bottle in his hand. It looked like apple juice. He threw that out the window. Open up a bit, Marcel. I think we're coming up towards that spike strip here. If he continues, not too far. I think it's going to be right down at that intersection right there. Yeah, you see the patrol cars. So do they have them on both sides? Yeah, look at that. Turn it down a little bit. We may have a Chiron there. They're on both sides. So hopefully they'll get him this time. He won't have much of a choice. It'd be hard to get around both of these with both sides of the street. And turning around with that vehicle is going to be really difficult. If they can get him past this one side street that he could turn on, if he doesn't see them, then he has no choice but to either turn around or continue to the intersection. They might be able to get him this time, but he's pretty erratic, Tony. From time to time, he just starts jumping up and down inside the truck. Yeah. Good word for it. Yeah. He just can't sit still. I mean, that's got to be the drugs, right? I mean, the guy just cannot sit still in that vehicle. We haven't seen a moment that we followed him that he was able to be relaxed. He's always fidgeting, perfect word, jumping around. We're coming up on this intersection, and unless the suspect turns into what's like a gas station, if he doesn't see the patrol cars and continues, they may get him with a spike strip here, but he does have an opportunity. I see. There's some road work up ahead, too, that forces him into one lane. Great catch there, Marcel. You see that road work right there? That's going to force him into one lane. And past the intersection, come to the intersection real quick. You can see where the road work is and even more of it. And he's going to be forced into that lane. I think they're going to get him here unless he sees them and he turns into that gas station. Yeah, they're trying to hide to make sure he can't see them. But if he does notice them and he gets into that lane and he can't get out of it, I think they're going to get him right here with a spike strip this time. Fifth time's the charm. Yep. Yep, both sides of the intersection, they're hiding. They know this guy's MO right now. Each time he comes up towards something like this, he's able to swerve around, and he drives so slow. So if he turns here, he's going to get away from it. If he doesn't turn here, I think they got him. And there you go. It's going to be really difficult for him to get past this. There you go. They're going to get him. They got the right front, and there's another one here, so they're going to throw out another one right now, I would imagine. Oh, it looked like he missed on that one, but I believe they got the right front. I believe they were worried about him coming into oncoming traffic there. And there's more road work up ahead. He's got to get into just the right lane. But we're going to get around to the other side. I'm pretty sure they got that right front tire, and that's going to make a huge difference in this pursuit. Or took the sweatshirt off if he had one on him. I'm not certain. Yeah, I'm not certain about that. Let's see if we can get around the other side and see if that tire is flat. It'll take a moment, but once that goes flat, I mentioned this is a heavy vehicle. That tire should come off fairly quickly and be right down to the rim. And then it would be much easier to put out a second spike strip because he just won't be able to maneuver it. And hopefully they got both right front and the right rear, but it didn't look like it to me. But hopefully got that right front, although it appears from this angle still to be inflated. Yeah, hard to tell with the shadow, but I think it. No, I think it is. I think they got it. It looks to me like they got it. On Etiwanda, slowly traveling southbound, stopped for a moment, and what we're going to see also, if that tire is flat, we're going to see some erratic moving in the front of that vehicle. It's just going to start to swerve a little bit. And now right in the center lane there, we're in somewhat of a residential area. That's not good. And maybe now that's a pretty close call there. Now that the spike strip, if it did work, hopefully it doesn't make the suspect more desperate and just start driving at a higher rate of speed and then have less control of the vehicle. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. It looked like they hit it. Another one set up? Yeah. Oh, of course. They're going to try another one here in a moment. I can't believe they missed the last one. It looks like they got him. Maybe it's just going to take a while for that tire to completely run down. Maybe it's a run flat or something, although you would think it'd be flat by now. They're going to try another one right now, and these are small little streets here in Kittredge. They may be able to get in front of them, force them into an area, and get the spike strip out once again. So I don't know if this was the intersection. I think they talked about this intersection, but I don't see them getting set up in time. If they are hiding around the corner, they might be able to get them. Yeah, they just didn't get there in time. We heard the call go out, and, fortunately, you push in. All the way in, is that tire flat? Yeah, it looks flat to me, Tony. It looks like they got it. So it's going to make it much more difficult for the suspect to continue. That'll be down on the rim pretty soon, and then it'll be hard for him to control the vehicle. They'll try and do another spike strip. That'll also, slow the vehicle, if you will, as far as how fast the suspect will be able to drive and won't be able to drive as fast. He won't be able to control the vehicle as well, that's for sure, and they may be able to do another spike strip. But you can tell they got him. They're talking about doing more spike strips in some of these intersections. It's right down to the rim almost. He's going to lose control of the vehicle pretty soon. It's going to be real hard to maneuver that truck once it's right down to the rim. Yep. Yeah, and what really worries you, what's our speed here, Marcel? Because if he's getting desperate because it's flat, we're at 40 miles an hour, but into oncoming traffic, there's another spike strip they tried to put out. That's the same intersection we were at a moment ago. They got him. Oh, they got the rear this time. So that's a set of doubles, 2 tires back there, and the spike strip got wrapped up in there, but that's good. So you're going to have all the tires on the right side of this vehicle flat, And the suspect, they want to get that spike strip out of there. You saw him running because they don't want to cause flats for other vehicles. But the suspect keeps going around in circles, Tony. I mean, we've been in the West Valley the whole time, but that's the second time he came back to the same intersection. Now, not only is the right front flat, we should see the two tires on the right rear go flat here in a moment as well.
So they weren't sure if the rear one deployed.
Yeah. No, it'll slowly go right down to the rim, though. It just takes time. You know, that tire's just going to come off. If you travel at a higher rate of speed, it'll come off quicker, obviously, with more friction, and sometimes they even catch on fire. We are hearing now they're not certain if that spike strip actually deployed, if it flipped over and got that rear tire. All right, copy.
Driver's side rear tire now deflated too.
Great.
So it's got the front and the driver's side rear.
Oh, they got the driver's side rear,
Yes.
the left rear.
Yeah. Left rear is gone.
Yeah. Copy. Copy. Oh, went up over the curb there. Yeah, we know we have a flat on the right front. They got the spike strip on the right front, and now we understand, according to the LAPD, they believe it's the left rear that's going to go flat next. That the spike strip did deploy, and they're going to get the left rear to go flat. We don't see an indication of that yet, but it takes a moment or two. And if that becomes the case, it's going to be real difficult for the suspect to maintain control. But with one tire, tire down to the rim, the right front, and speeds at 50 miles an hour, here on Lindley Avenue in Reseda, it's gotten pretty dangerous. You know, before he was traveling like 9 miles an hour, could see the patrol cars. Now he's going to lose control of this vehicle because of the flat in the right front. And if we loses the left rear, we can push in tight. If that goes flat like we think it's going to be really hard to control this vehicle. It'll be really hard to maintain speed. And it does look like slowly it may be going flat, but unfortunately, Tony, we're seeing higher rates of speed, the kind of thing that really concerns us in pursuits like this because of the danger to the public. So you got a flat tire, maybe two. You've got this big truck pulling a concrete pumper trailer, and you've got speeds almost 60 miles an hour on Lindley Avenue in Reseda, and a suspect who's desperate, he's fidgeting, he's under the influence of something, according to the LAPD, and a more and more dangerous situation, coming to fruition here as we watch this. Yeah, you don't see it in the shot. The right front for sure is flat. It's right down to the rim. We did hear, though, that they thought on the last spike strip that they threw out that they got the left rear, but I don't really see that the left rear is going flat. So that may not be the case. So they just have the right front from what we can tell at this point in time. Staying in about the same area here on Victory Boulevard in Tarzana. We've been mostly in Tarzana, Canoga Park. It all started up in Chatsworth about 7:20 this morning, and it hasn't been an extremely high-speed pursuit, but the suspect's been very erratic, fidgeting inside there. As we mentioned earlier, they say under the influence of something, and that the suspect just can't sit still. And when he does come to stops, though, if there's a pedestrian out, he seems to try and engage them. He's like, hey, come here, come here. There's going to be another spike strip, we think, right here at this intersection. There you go. You see the patrol car, and you see what they're going to do is try and hide until the last moment. If they can get the suspect to stay in that right lane and continue towards that intersection, he's in the center lane right now, but the right lane would be better because you can't get too far around that. Although he does appear to be a little hesitant, as if, hey, this happened to me last time in a construction zone, and that's where you got me. So it's difficult to get the spike strip out when the suspect's driving this slow. They really don't want to run right in front of him, but they are going to try another attempt here. One worked. The right front tire is flat, and they're hoping to get another one so they can get this pursuit to come to an end. Is he putting his sweater back on? Yeah. Yep, coming up on another intersection. You see the officer trying to get out probably about right now. There he goes. He's running out in front. He really doesn't want to get right in front of the guy. He wants to throw it out there. Nice job. And he hit the same. Oh, get the back. Get the back. Oh, they got the back this time. It looks like that one deployed. It would have been nice if they got both of the front tires. They already had the right front, but they, it appears, once again, after about 7 attempts, 2 have been successful. It looks like that one was successful to get the right rear tire. And, you know, slowly but surely, you mentioned, Irene, the gas mileage. It's hard to say, you know, it's not going to get much, and it's hard to say how much fuel is in it. I have to believe that LAPD's talked to the company. They know about how much, but the gas mileage and the time that this guy can keep going goes way down when you're driving on a rim and not a tire. So if they did get the right rear, hopefully we can get this thing to come to an end without incident. There was one accident during the pursuit. We don't think it was a bad one. There was a little damage to the front of the truck. We believe that could be stolen. We haven't been able to confirm that. It might have been stolen after a traffic accident at 7:20 this morning up in Chatsworth at DeSoto and Lassen. We heard that was a hit and run, and then we heard a stolen vehicle. We're just trying to put 2 and 2 together, and we're probably coming up with 5 because that's how it happens most of the time. But now we see the suspect just stopping, and, oh boy, making a left turn in front of another vehicle, pushing them in oncoming traffic. And, boy, that's what they don't want to see, right? I mean, it just gets dangerous. Fortunately, he's not traveling at a high rate of speed, but it's certainly erratic, this individual, and under the influence of something. Well, he hasn't been on any freeways as far as we know. There's been one crash that was at Sherman Way and Corbin with this vehicle, not the original hit and run, which may have been with other vehicles. And I did not see that accident occur, but it doesn't appear to me that there's a lot of damage to the truck. You can see a little bit in the front, but you can tell he's having a hard time controlling the vehicle. It's going to get very difficult now that it gets down to the rim. And if the right rear goes as well, and it looks like that spike strip was going to get the right rear, then it's going to be really hard to maneuver this vehicle because the back will be dragging, and then you have the extra weight of that concrete pumper. And that thing weighs a lot. That's a big engine that pumps concrete. It's got to be a diesel engine with a lot of horsepower because concrete is heavy. You see those tubes in the back. the tubing in the back of that truck, and the concrete gets pumped through that to get to a back of a house or get to an area where a cement truck can't get. And it's hard to tell yet if the right rear is flat. Sometimes it takes a moment. But we believe, I mean, it looked like that last attempt got it. It's just so hard to tell in the shadow there if they got the right rear. Yeah, of the spike strips, we thought 3 of them hit. One definitely did, and then the last one, I thought for sure they got it. But you know, the way that spike strip is, when they throw it out, it still has to be upright. If it flips over on its side, then it's not going to work. And then also the officer is very aware of the fact that he's got to get it out real quick because the patrol cars behind it or other vehicles they don't want running over that spike strip. So it's just not easy in any case. We're not hearing about another one set up. I think they believed that they got the right rear. That's what we heard. They believe it was successful, and it may just take a little more time for that to go flat, but we don't see any indication right now that they did get it. We don't see it going flat. And, you know, driving at this slow a pace and not going to ruin the rim. You know, I've seen some pursuits in the past. If the suspect drives at a high rate of speed, that rim will just disintegrate. It'll just go right down to the axle, and then the vehicle can't move at all. But you could probably keep going like this for some time, but you certainly can't go very fast, and then you do lose some of the ability to maneuver the vehicle. What scares you is if he does get the vehicle going at a pretty high rate of speed and then does not have control of it, we could see an accident, and that's just what we don't want to see. $20. Yeah, it's because of the vehicle and the trailer that it's pulling. Even if it was just that truck, they wouldn't use a pit maneuver. The patrol cars behind it just don't have enough weight to try and hit the back of just the truck, not taking into account the trailer itself. And so they probably wouldn't do a pit maneuver on this vehicle regardless. It's just too heavy. It's too low to the ground. Center of gravity is low. But with that trailer behind it, you just can't do a pit maneuver. You can see what would happen. The trailer would flip and spin, and if that comes unhitched from the truck and then hits another vehicle, we just have so much traffic here, it just wouldn't be safe for the surrounding people, for the pedestrians, for the other motorists. So it appears to me, and I'm no expert at this, but it appears to me the pit maneuver is not an option in this one. 20 to 25 minutes, depending on where it's at. Yeah, didn't get the rear though. No, I don't think that we are. I don't know that we will. I'm sure the LAPD has that. I'm sure they've talked to the company. What we're seeing now, though, with that right front tire down to the rim, it's becoming extremely difficult for the vehicle to get going, right, to really get going at any rate of speed. Once he gets going in speed, he can pick up more and more speed. But the initial start, right off the stop there, is very difficult. Also seen the suspect engaging anyone who will engage him. See that individual there? He has no idea what's going on. But the suspect wants to talk to everybody. Every time he stops and he sees someone, he tries to engage him. There may be some mental health issues as well in this situation. You see that sometimes that individuals on the street, they just want to talk, they just want to get it out. We do know they believe he's under the influence of something. Can you pull out? Is this the same intersection we were in before? I'm trying to get an idea. No, I thought it might have been in the same parking lot we were at before. But now, in this parking lot, LAPD cruisers are right behind off to the left. They may do another spike strip here. They're going to be very aware of the fact that you have people walking around, so they're going to take it easy. But the suspect is starting to lose control of that vehicle a little bit. It's very hard to make the turns. The tire is almost completely gone. And once you get down to the rim, it'll get more and more difficult to control. This is going to be tough. This is going to be tough, Tony, because if he's going to make a turn here, he's going to have to go through traffic. Open up a little bit. If he's going to make the right turn that he's trying to make, he's going to have to go through that traffic. And the vehicle just doesn't start that quickly. So we'll see if we get a break in traffic enough for him to make that maneuver and pull out in front of traffic and then get into the lane that he wants to get into to go basically would be northbound here. But you can tell it becomes a lot more difficult to drive this vehicle now that the right front is flat. It's unfortunate the left front or the left rear didn't hit. We thought it had, but it doesn't appear that spike strip worked. So I think they've done 7, and they were successful with 1. But certainly that's they're getting the profits from that now because it's becoming very difficult for the suspect to continue. It looks like. Let's open up a minute, Marcel. I just want to see where the patrol cars are. You saw the LAPD helicopter just fly through. And you see there the patrol cars in a line with 5 of them or so following slowly behind. So they haven't gone, completely to tracking mode like we'd seen before. This is like a partial tracking mode, right? The suspect can barely see these guys. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're in what they call a tracking mode because they're just not letting the suspect see them, giving the suspect maybe some false sense that they're not behind him or they don't know where he is. Because we do see him looking out the door all the time, looking back, engaging people on the shoulder, and just fidgeting, jumping up and down inside there basically. Just can't sit still. You can tell it really appears that he's under the influence of something. But they backed off a bit. Maybe they're content right now with him being just on the rim for him to drive until that vehicle is just not drivable any longer. At some point in time, more than likely the rim will collapse, and once you're down on the axle, then you're not going to drive at all. No, we really don't. We haven't got any information from the LAPD either. Obviously they've got a very good look. It looks like, it wasn't hot enough for him, so he put his sweatshirt back on. We saw the sweatshirt on, then we saw him take the sweatshirt off, and now we see him put the sweatshirt back on. There's another spike strip. Looks like he got around that one, though. It didn't appear to me that they were able to get him with that one. But, when he stays in one certain area, then it's easier to set out these spike strips, right? Because there's, probably 30 or 40 patrol cars all aware this is going on, all in the same area. And they've got the patrol cars with the spike strips in this area for this specific reason right now. So they can throw them out. I'm assuming we're going to see more of that until they get more of the tires flat. And then that will end this. Irene, we saw him throw what appeared to be a jar or a bottle of apple juice out the window. He was drinking something, but no indication as to what might be in there. There was a vest Tony was talking about. We were speculating, if he does work for that company, maybe that vest is, something he puts on when he gets to the job site. That's just pure speculation, though. We have no idea. We did see the vest inside there. We've seen him, you know, with the dark sweater on, then take it off, and now put it back on, and it's gotten warmer. So, you know, you're obviously dealing with an extremely unstable individual here. There's no doubt about that. That's correct. I mean, it's got to hit. We saw it hit the tire. We saw the tire roll over, and it didn't work. It didn't engage properly. So they've got to get it out there, and they've got to get it so the spikes are sticking up in the right way, so it doesn't just roll over it and not puncture the tire. But it's not easy when the suspect's driving at 6 to 7 miles an hour, and he almost comes to a stop at every intersection. If you can imagine, if he's doing the speed limit of 45 or 40 or whatever it is in this area, and then they hide and they throw it out real quick. If they could stop traffic behind them so they don't give other people flats, it'd be much easier. But in this situation, open up. Is there another spike strip here? Because a lot of times when we see him stop before an intersection, he believes that there's going to be a spike strip there. It's sort of tried so many times. Now, we don't see them, but you can tell what his strategy is if he has one, and that is, okay, oh, is the door open? Is he going to get out? Let's push on in. It's the first time we've seen the door open, and hopefully he just gets out of the vehicle. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Yeah, he's aware that they're putting spike strips out. There's no doubt about that because he slows down at every intersection. And I don't know if he's traveling this slow because he's having a hard time getting the vehicle moving or if he's just traveling this slow because he wants to do that. But it's going to be very difficult to accelerate when you have one tire down to the rim. And as I mentioned earlier, what happens is there's so much weight in this vehicle that as time goes on, if he continues to drive just a little faster than this, lots of times we'll see the tire will come off completely, then you're down to the rim. The rim sometimes even starts to spark and catches a fire. Usually have to be traveling at a high rate of speed for that to happen. And then eventually that rim just gives way. I mean, you can't drive on the rim forever. It'll snap, it'll crack. And once that happens, the vehicle's pretty much can't be driven. And look at that. You see when he hits the brake? So when things like that happen, it's just a matter of time before that rim's going to give up altogether. What happened? Yeah, you can tell it's also getting much more difficult for this vehicle to continue to move. I want to show you out. It's too far. I won't pull out that far. But if you go about a block and a half away, you've got a half a dozen patrol cars. And I think what they're trying to do is just stop some of the traffic on Ventura Boulevard so people don't drive up next to them. It's inevitable. You can't stop all of it. But you see on the left side of your screen right there are the patrol cars. So they're trying to stop traffic on Ventura going westbound. There's some traffic they can't stop, like from these surface streets or the parking lots onto Ventura Boulevard. But they're trying to keep as many people away from him as possible. And they want to be right behind him if this comes to a stop and he makes a run for it. They'd like to get him into custody. But, you know, obviously it's getting more and more difficult for the suspect to continue down on that one rim at this point in time, and it's inevitable at some point that this is going to end. And we've been watching it now, as you mentioned, for 2 hours. There was one traffic collision, but we don't think anybody's been hurt. And as far as danger to the public, there's another spike strip, and it's hard to say. They may have got that left rear, and that would be nice. Yep. Yep. We understand they called good spike. That's what they call it. It's good spike. So they think they got it, but we heard that on the last one too, and they didn't have it. So we're going to have to see. But that one looks successful. I think if they've got the right front and the left rear, this vehicle is going to have a real hard time going anywhere fast. And, it doesn't appear the suspect has any indication he's just going to give himself up. I mean, unless maybe the drugs wear off, if that's what this is all about. But it's going to be tough to keep this going if they did get that left rear tire and then the right front is already down to the rim. But we just hope this ends without incident and nobody gets hurt. As of right now, we don't think anybody's been hurt in this 2-hour-long pursuit, except for the initial accident that we don't know a lot about that happened at 7:20 up at DeSoto and Lassen and Chatsworth. We don't know for sure, but it may not be this was the vehicle involved in that accident. This vehicle may have been stolen. Pure speculation. We're just trying to piece things together. We don't know for sure, but we just know it was a hit-and-run incident, and then we know it was a stolen vehicle. We believed in the pursuit, or one of the vehicles in the accident was a stolen vehicle. So it's hard. LAPD is not really interested in giving us that because they got so much other things to worry about, and you understand that. So we haven't been able to piece it all together, but if they did get the left rear, and I think they did because you see the vehicle swerving a bit, then I think this may be over soon. Yeah. I'm dragging that trailer. Yeah, let's hope not much further, right? That's enough of this. And we just, like I said before, I mean, you follow these things. There's no rhyme and reason to them ever, but you just don't want anyone to get hurt. We're on Ventura Boulevard headed westbound into the Woodland Hills area, coming up on Winnetka. For the most part, the entire time, it started in Chatsworth. It's been in the Woodland Hills, Canoga Park area for the most part. And making a left turn here, I think what we're going to see is it's just going to be extremely difficult to maneuver and to control that truck if we do have the left rear flat. We haven't been able to get to that side and confirm it yet. We're working on that, but there's a lot of other aircrafts up here in the LAPD, and we have to have separation. So sometimes we can't get exactly where we want to get, but you can tell by the way it's sliding there. You see it's kind of sliding? I'm pretty sure that left rear tire is right down to the rim as well. So I really have a feeling they're going to be able to stop this soon, or this vehicle is just not going to be able to continue. And it's really weird how he engages individuals. When he gets next to an individual, he engages, tries to talk to them. And I don't know what these two people are doing right here in front of him. If they really think they're trying to intervene and stop traffic, that's not a good idea. I don't know if that's the case, but look what it did to the suspect. It just made him speed up. Let's push into that and see if they got it. It's really hard to tell. Did they get maybe a tire on the trailer as well? Hopefully they got that left rear. It looks like it might be going down slowly, but it's just so hard to tell. And they may have just got the inner one and not the outer one. I think there's two tires on that double rim there. But you could tell when those individuals tried to stop him, he took off. And now you see somebody next to him. It looks like they're filming him. So I tell you, when these pursuits, yeah, they go on for a while. A lot of people want to get out and get involved, and it's not a good idea. No. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, drugs or psychosis, right? I mean, a lot of times if you have a psychotic individual, they're going to try and start a conversation about nothing. That could be the case, but unfortunately, even though we heard good spike, push into that right rear. I mean, I don't see it flat yet. Maybe it's headed that direction, but once that goes completely flat, if it does seem to be wobbling a bit, so hopefully that's going to be the case. That's really going to deter where the suspect can go. But yeah, Irene, don't want to get involved. You can get arrested for being involved. You get involved in this thing, you try and intervene, you try and stop this, you can get arrested for that. They don't want you anywhere near that, and if you have any sense whatsoever, you're not going to. Is this BMW right here trying to speed up and take more pictures? It almost looks like it. Yeah. Yeah, not recommended, not smart, but everybody wants to get, wants to get the picture. And there he goes. He's going to pull up. He's going to shoot with a phone. And, boy, you just never know. I mean, he just may ram that vehicle just out of spite because the guy's doing that. It's not good. Push all the way into the tire. Unfortunately, I don't see the left rear going flat. A little flat, but we don't see it all the way down. So hopefully it's slowly going to go all the way down because that'll really restrict the maneuverability of this vehicle and hopefully stop this pursuit. Open up a little bit now that he's stopped, if you would, Marcel. Just want to get an idea what's going on. So look at the tow truck, and it looks like, is that a G-Wagon or a Jeep? That's the same two vehicles that were in front of him before. It's a Jeep. And the same tow truck. Remember they tried to stop him a moment ago? So there's a lot of people in here on Ventura Boulevard that are basically engaging this thing. They shouldn't, but they are. And then you see the LAPD cruisers behind him, maybe 100 yards or so now. They've moved up a little bit. So they haven't gone completely away from tracking mode. They're still engaged somewhat, and then they have the helicopter overhead. And you could tell he continues to look back, and we'll just hope that tire in the right rear there, or the left rear there, goes flat soon. $15. Yeah. No, slow rate of speed. He's continuing on. We don't see a flat on that left rear like we thought we would. And if that was the case, I really thought that maybe this would come to an end pretty soon. But with just the right front and driving at this rate of speed, he could probably continue on for a long time. I follow a lot of pursuits when they're on a rim and they're traveling at a high rate of speed. That rim does not hold up for long. But when you're just barely moving like this, you could probably go on way too long. And there comes a BMW again. That's the same knucklehead that was trying to get some pictures. But every time we see people out, this suspect really does try and engage with the individuals. Every time he tries to get some gestures going, tries to talk to whoever is on the shoulder. And in a lot of cases, when we follow these pursuits, and almost all of them, we see the suspects on the phone. This individual hasn't been. We talked about how erratic he's been inside the cab of this truck, looking out, pointing down, gesturing at people, throwing bottles out, grabbing something from the back, looking at the tires, looking back at the police, and not for one moment does he sit still. So he's fidgeting, he's very nervous, he's, obviously, as I mentioned, according to the police, they believe he's under the influence of something. Well, we've seen a couple of close calls. We've seen him go into oncoming traffic, but it's such a low rate of speed. It wasn't like we were, thinking, oh, my goodness, somebody's going to die here. He did make a couple of maneuvers and, pulling that trailer. The trailer went up onto the curb. We know at one point there was an accident during the pursuit at Sherman Way and Corbin. We haven't seen anything that really got our attention like, oh, my goodness, because of the rate of speed hasn't been that high. But that's no indicator that might not happen here sometime soon if this individual gets desperate or more desperate. But it looks like that right rear tire, or I should say the left rear tire, the one on the right side of your screen, I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going flat to me. If it is, it's doing it awful slowly. Yeah, they initially tried several times on Topanga Canyon Boulevard. Those were all unsuccessful. At this point in time, we only believe of the 7 or 8 that they tried, 1 was successful. And it's not easy for them to deploy it in some situations. The first indication is when they missed it the first time, this guy is aware that they're trying to do it. So every time he comes up on an intersection, he drives slow. When they did it on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, he was able to maneuver around, and Topanga was big enough he could even make a U-turn when he saw they were in front of him. So he saw a lot of activity like that. LAPD has patrol cars in this whole area. We're in Woodland Hills right now on Ventura Boulevard. For the most part, it's all been on the West Valley. And more than likely, they're going to do some more spike strips. But the officers don't want to get right in front of the vehicle. I mean, there's a couple of things they're worried about. He could gun it. He could try and hit the officer. He could just swerve towards the officer and say, I'm going to hit that guy. They don't want an officer to get hurt. Second, we don't know if the suspect's armed. We don't know if he could get out of the vehicle and open fire on the officer. So there's a lot of dynamics here. There's a lot of things going on that you can't predict. And so it's just not as easy as, hey, man, throw that thing out in front of the tire. It just doesn't work that way. You'd like to think it does. And, now there's another factor, and that's that the public are getting involved. They're pulling up trying to engage this guy. And it just makes it harder for law enforcement because they got to worry about the public as well, and now they're getting next to this individual who could be very dangerous. Yep. Here comes a BMW again.
Calling for SWAT in an armored vehicle.
Thank you. Yeah, Irene and Tony, we just heard that they're calling out SWAT, so they may bring an armored vehicle out, and they may believe that with the armored vehicle they can get in front of them. Did you just throw something out, or is that a piece of the tire? Look at a piece of tire. You don't see it in the, you don't see it in this shot, but the right front. We went to this side because we thought the left rear was hit with a spike strip, but the right front tire is gone. It's just on the rim. If you're just joining us. But we do understand that SWAT's been called, and they may bring the armored vehicle out to try and stop this. It looks like, though, if the suspect continues with what he's doing right now, he's not a huge threat to people out on the road, and that's good, because a lot of these pursuits we follow are just so dangerous, they scare you. Oh, door's open. Hopefully he gets out here. We've seen that a couple of times. That's the second time, Irene, we've seen him open the door. This continue on. He's just so erratic. There's no way of knowing what's going on inside this guy's head. What he may or may not do. You can see by this shot, we're on Ventura Boulevard, just crossing Shoup, and in the Woodland Hills area. But LAPD's backed off again. Like I said, they did call in SWAT, but I don't think that's going to be an immediate thing. I think that's going to take some time before they really get deployed and get out here. And hopefully it'll be over by then. But look at all the tread that's coming off. It's almost gone completely, and then I think even at this speed, eventually that rim is going to collapse. And when it does collapse, it could start a fire. You see the smoke. The cab could start on fire. That'll get them out. Or the rim will collapse, and once that happens, you just can't drive the vehicle at all, and it'll be over. So it is the left rear almost a little flat? It almost appears, the right rear right there, is that one almost a little flat? It almost appears that it is, but it didn't go completely down to the rim. But, hopefully this will just be over soon. We're still on Ventura Boulevard, slowly headed westbound through the Woodland Hills area. speed tracker? Yep. Yeah, well, fortunately, he stops at the red lights, so, you know, he doesn't want to kill himself. And now you have the patrol cars right behind him, so, you know, it's been really interesting to watch this pursuit as far as what the police strategy is. 1 minute they're tracking mode, the next minute they're right behind him, the next minute every intersection they're trying to get a spike strip out. Now they're calling out SWAT. Of course, the helicopter's overhead. If he gets low on fuel, they'll call in another one, so they'll definitely keep the helicopter on this individual. Stopping at red lights, and then it's difficult for the vehicle to get going. You know, there's a lot of drag when you don't have a right front tire. So the initial startup of the vehicle. And Marcel, it looks to me like that one's getting a little flat on the right rear as well. So it looks to me, I don't know if to you guys or it's just a shadow, but it appears to me that's getting flat. And if that happens, see, then it's going to be really difficult for the vehicle to move at all, okay, because it's a rear-wheel drive truck. And if you get that rear tire down to the rim and the front tire down to the rim, it's going to be hard to get up any type of speed. It's also going to be hard to control the vehicle. And we're not seeing a very high rate of speed at all anymore, and that may be one of the reasons. Yeah, slowly but surely, it's going to be more and more difficult to drive this vehicle, and it's encouraging that the right rear is going flat as well. That's really going to make it more difficult. Open up for a moment, Marcel. I can't see. Are they still right behind him? Yeah, they're pretty much following right behind. I don't see a spike strip up ahead, another one, but we could get one. And fortunately, there's not a lot of volume right here on Ventura Boulevard headed westbound. There's been a lot of construction on this, so I think a lot of folks avoid it. Not only that, Ventura Boulevard, you know, at some point ends once you hit Valley Circle. And then that'll be, you could get on the freeway at this point in time, but it'd be a surprise, I think, if the suspect did that. But, you know, you never know. You can't get into the mind of these individuals at all. You can't even guess them. And every time you try and guess what they might do, in my experience, you're going to be wrong. But it's good that it's going slow. It's good that they made progress with getting more of the tires flat. And it's good that we don't see really any danger to the public. And as far as we know, no one's been hurt. So that's good as far as pursuits go as well. Push into that tire, Marcel. It looks like it's almost all the way down now onto the rim. So, yeah, it's just a matter of time at this point in time, or a matter of time before this is over. I don't think he's going to be able to continue. Once that goes down to the rim, really going to be difficult to control this truck. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it depends on so many factors, depending on how they cover it. It depends on the agency. It depends on the supervisor who's telling the officers exactly how they're going to proceed. We're seeing them speed up a little bit, and we're going to end up at Valley Circle here in a moment. They don't have any units at Valley Circle. When we see higher speeds, though, like we're seeing here for the moment, that just means more pressure on those tires and the rims, and it could indicate they're not going to be able to control the vehicle. You see some swerving there. Not sure if he's doing it on purpose, but you can see having a very difficult time controlling this truck. Now, this is Valley Circle. If he continues with a right turn there, we'll be going back northbound, so back up into the Woodland Hills area. But we do have all the officers still right behind him at this point in time. And just to give you guys an indication, we have probably another 5 minutes maximum before we're going to have to break for fuel ourselves. And we're hoping he runs out of fuel before we do. "20 minutes, yeah. Other side. Yep. We're going to try and get to the other side, and then we can get a better look at the two tires. That the right front that's down to the rim, and then the other one you can see is about ready to lose the tire completely in the rear as well. And then it's really, 27 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour is fast when you're down to just rims and you can't control the vehicle. There's not a huge amount of traffic on Valley Circle right here. We're right in front of the high school. Fortunately, they're not in session. I don't see a lot of traffic in the area, but you can tell right down to the rim. We had some smoke coming out a moment ago. At the higher speed, you start to see sparking. Sometimes you'll see a fire start. You start to see that rim will just unravel. And like I mentioned earlier, when the rim does get down to the right down to the axle, it's over. You're not going anywhere. But it certainly has taken a long time. And we've got patrol cars, for the most part, still right behind them. It's right in front of the high school here on Valley Circle, headed northbound. But a pretty high rate of speed, considering you're just on a rim there. Oh, the brakes. It's going to break. Yep. When he hits the brakes, one of these times, that rim is going to snap, and then it's over, okay? Because there's so much pressure on that rim. You could see it when he hits the brakes. And, officers right behind him, they realize he's having a hard time maneuvering. He's got you see how the rim is turned there. He's trying to maneuver the vehicle, having a very hard time. And they're just hoping this individual gets out of the vehicle and they can get this over without incident. It's gone on long enough. Nobody's got hurt. Let's just get this individual into custody. The vehicle's having a really hard time accelerating. Once it gets up to 27, 30 miles an hour, it's not too bad. But getting to that speed, you can tell, is very difficult, especially it's a rear-wheel drive vehicle. And once it's all the way down to the rim on the back tire, it's going to be very difficult for it to get going. And a couple more slams on the brakes like that, slamming on the brakes, and that rim could just collapse. It gets down to the axle, and the vehicle's not going anywhere. It certainly is. I mean, it could go, it could go on for another hour. One time I followed a pursuit of a Land Rover that went down to the rim on the 101 North, all the way up into Ventura, and I believe it drove like 100 miles on the rims. So if you don't drive too fast, you can go for a long time, but slamming on the brakes is going to make that rim collapse at some point. We do hope it gets over soon, because our ability to cover it here is going to diminish probably. I don't know, we have 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're close to Van Nuys Airport, so it's easy for us to duck in there and get fuel. We don't have concerns, but once we get down to a certain point, we have to head that direction, and certainly we will. We did hear that they're going to call in SWAT. At this point in time, I don't really know what SWAT is going to do, and if SWAT's going to be activated, like to get in front of this guy. Maybe they're thinking that SWAT should be available if this turns out to be a standoff at some point. I really don't think that they would put an armored vehicle in front of this vehicle to try and stop it. I've never seen anything like that. But there goes the right rear, and when that tire comes off altogether and they're down to the rim, it's going to really diminish this guy's ability to keep going and to control the vehicle. As I look outside, open up out of your shot a little bit. So we're coming up here, I think maybe on Sherman Way. Is it Sherman Way or Platt, actually, on Valley Circle. It turns into Platt at Victory Boulevard. He's making a stop. There's an intersection here. There's 4 or 5 patrol cars behind him. Looks like he might be trying to make a right turn. And we just don't know if it's making a right turn. He just can't control the vehicle, but it looks like a right turn now. Back to basically the same area where we saw most of this pursuit go. We can't control it. Sounds good. No way. Hold on a second. We're hearing they might try and pit him. We want to be here for that. Can we go to the light? Are you cool, or you want to go now? To go a couple minutes. Okay. How are they going to pit this guy? Seriously going to pit? No way. There's no way they're going to pit this. I can't believe that they could pit this. It wouldn't work. Yeah, well, the guy's a rookie. Oh, here we go. Get some speed up. That's going to, he might crash. He might lose control of this vehicle. Are we still streaming, guys? I'm assuming that we are. So there was an officer who was calling for the pit, and then I just couldn't believe that that would be the case, and it's not. The supervisor said, no, you can't pit this guy. But we're seeing that, there you go, lost the tread altogether, down to the rim basically in the back. A lot of weight back there. It's a rear drive vehicle. That is really going to be difficult for him to continue. What's our speed tracker? What's our pace here? Because even at 35 miles an hour, that's pretty fast on the rim. You know, one quick move with the steering wheel with a guy who's really been indecisive and fidgeting and really not in control of himself for the most part. One quick turn, this thing could flip over and you could cause the damage to other vehicles. You could hurt or even kill someone. We're on Victory Boulevard headed eastbound. We've been on Victory Boulevard several times in the Woodland Hills area. This has gone on for over 2.5 hours now. There was one accident involved. We don't think anyone was hurt. And coming to a stop will be interesting because once the vehicle stops, especially if it hits the brakes, you see so much pressure on the front rim, the right front rim that's lost the tire there. And then getting going is going to be difficult. To accelerate is going to be nearly impossible when the back is down to the rim. So a lot of factors going on here. Go ahead. You got it. Great job, Johnny. Very, very, very good job, man. Very good. Really excellent, excellent. Yeah, Marcel, incredible. But for Johnny, that's pretty amazing because he didn't have that much time covering these pursuits. So that was phenomenal. I wasn't nervous once.